Welcome to Iowa Pagan News, your informative internet radio station catering to all pagans worldwide. We are dedicated to bringing you the very best in music, news, events, and lots of fun stuff. Come tune into our new podcast at www.plrdn.podbean.com. Now, here is your host, Lou Silverwolf Williams.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Pagan Artist Spotlight on the Prairie Land Radio Network. And I also want to say thank you again to my good friend Ginger Ackley, who has been so kind enough to do the intros for us here at Iowa Pagan News. It's very much appreciated. You'll also be hearing from Susan as well during the show with her voice clip. Now, we're to this evening. I am joined by my good special guests, Martha Kirby Capo and Vincent Higginbotham. And they went in together on a book that I had basically introduced to at Llewellyn Con. Yeah, because I also have a good contact now at Llewellyn who had also recommended your book to me as well. Um, Still waiting for him to send me the copy though. So I'm still waiting to receive that one. But I want to thank you both for coming on the show. And the title of your book, I got to go back and look, but basically it's Thrifty Witchery. And this is another good book that I would definitely recommend to add to any library. Uh, Even though I have not had a chance to leaf through it or read through it, but it looks to be a good book.
You know, we were excited to write this, and there's a story behind everything. But we were talking a couple of years ago and kicking around some ideas, and Vinny was like, I can't remember exactly what Vinny had said, but it was something like, why does everybody feel like they always have to get all this stuff and keep up with what you're seeing on Instagram and keep up with what you're seeing on these curated accounts that are just glowing and perfect and gorgeous. And we kind of came up with an idea that that maybe people don't have to, and maybe we can be the ones who can tell them how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because it just seems like I think that there's this misconception in witchcraft that you have to spend money to be magical. And I think that there's this feeling or sense for a lot of witches who can't afford to do that, that where they experience FOMO or fear of missing out. Mm-hmm. And I feel that it's really important to deliver messages. If you're going to sit down and write 60,000 plus words, you better have something to say. And I think that both Martha and I feel very strongly that you don't need to fear missing out because you don't have to miss out. You don't need to go spend money on a rock or a crystal or, anything. Like, I don't need to go buy an herb at a witch store because my cupboard probably has the herb that I need. Mm-hmm. And just because it doesn't dictate that in some spell I found online or in somebody else's book, that doesn't mean that I can't find out what the herbs that I do have or the herbs that I use on a regular basis might have a correspondence to what it is that I'm trying to pull off in my magic. Right. And I think that that's kind of where we came together because we come from these really different backgrounds concerning money or poverty or our experiences. Mm-hmm. And even though we come from those different backgrounds, we still have this same kind of opinion on how magic works. And mm-hmm. It's not predicated on what you spend or what you're able to afford.
Right.
I think one of the powerful lines that Vinny has written in the book is that you're not an Athame witch, you're not a Cauldron witch, you're not a Besom witch, you're not a whatever witch. You are a witch, and your witchiness, your power, is in you,
mm-hmm.
And it's lovely. It's lovely to have all the things. I have lots of things, but that's not what makes me power-filled practitioner.
Right.
That
Right.
comes from, really at its core, one of the cores. This book is a book about self-empowerment and getting readers to recognize what self-empowerment is, define it, and then give them steps to enhance their self-empowerment, to build their own self-empowerment. And then we move forward with that. Like, how do you trust your intuition? What is intuition? Where does it come from? How do we define that? What does that look like in you? What is wisdom? How do you define that? What does that look like in you? What is intention?
Mhm.
How is that defined? What does that look like in you? And once we get the self-empowerment aspect kind of in a place where we understand what it is and how all these things work together, then we can move forward to find and forage and fabricate our own tools.
Right. Because it goes back to a couple of uh, very simple um, things that I've had the same discussion with a few other authors and other guests I've had on the show, that
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to break the bank to be able to practice your path.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, it is nice to have. It is nice to have the well, basically what people call shiny stuff. Uh, but if it's okay if you can afford to purchase those things, but you don't have to. That's
Mm-hmm.
not required. Plus, you're working with the magic that you create within yourself.
That's
Mhm.
exactly right. One of the questions that we ask in the book is, how would your magical practice change? How would your practice change? Is if you manufactured your own tools, not as a poor last choice because you don't have the funds or the budget to go buy something,
Hmm.
but as your first choice, because you know that the materials that you are working with have aligned with your magical DNA because you have been spending time with them. They have your essence already imbued in them. And then you can
Mhm.
take these things. I'm talking things like old sheets, T-shirts, things that aren't usable anymore, but you love them. Like my grandmother's, I have my grandmother's tin measuring spoons. Those things are 100 years old, and I, um, I I can't use them anymore, but I can't get rid of them. They have
Mhm.
her energy, they have my energy. So what can I do with them? Well, I can save them back for when I'm mixing together some kind of magical blend. So they're not used all that often. They can still last. But now I've got my grandmother's hands touched that. I mean, they
Mhm.
touched that. They stroked those. They made decisions.
Right.
And
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 that's sorry to cut you off, Martha, but
no,
I was
cut me
just
off.
thinking how that's like almost ancestral magic as well,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
that's not just a personal connection, but that's like a lineage connection
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to access that magic.
Mm-hmm. But we don't think about stuff like that, and that's the thing, I guess, is that you can't always be hyper aware of everything being magical around you. Which Vinny and I both
Mhm.
believe everything around us is that there is no mundane; it's all magical. Some things are routine, and but really, it. I think sometimes maybe people who are new to witchcraft think, oh well, there's this special stuff over here that's uniquely magic, and so
Mhm.
that's the stuff I have to do, or that's the stuff I have to have. But
Hmm.
again, it's your own personal cauldron of magic inside you that decides what to use as tools.
Right. I was on Twitter the other day, and the Witch of Southern Light, I want to say that's his name, or their name. I shouldn't use pronouns I'm not certain about, but their name is the Witch of Southern Light, I believe, on Twitter, and they had asked what you use to make a charm bag, and people had these really great answers, and I was like, Well, I would use like an old sock or like a
Mhm.
jock strap or, whatever it is that is old and usable
Well, that would certainly
and
have your magical
pertains.
essence on it.
Right. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? That's
It
the
would.
whole
I mean, it
point.
would. Yeah.
Like if I'm doing a charm to like, I don't know, make people like me, maybe the jock strap is the right thing. You know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
like if like, I don't need to do a love charm, and I certainly have never done love magic, but if I were going to, I feel like a jock strap makes perfect sense,
I
like
had somebody talking. I was presenting at Llewellyn Con last week, and I was talking about using things that already have your personal imprint on them, that are already kind
yep,
of aligned with your magical DNA. And she said that she saves out the
the
lint
lint. Yes.
from, yeah, and I thought that's exactly what we're talking about,
I heard
because
that and I was like, "Oh, that's an excellent
that's such a
fire
great idea.
starter."
I know.
Yeah, I'm like, I think I'm going to do this because lint is really good for kindling
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's an excellent way to keep a fire going.
Well,
And
and when you think about it, for those who weren't part of that discussion, what's happening with that lint? What is that? And that's essences of whatever was in those clothes that you
mhm,
were washing and now drying. So that's like dead skin flakes. That's some leftover portion of some sort of body fluid that's all kind of getting washed and cleaned up and then trapped by the lint. And it makes perfect sense to me that you would want to maybe use that as part of a magical practice in a creative way.
right?
It's part of a magical practice. I thought that was very clever.
I
You know,
can think of so many ways to use that. Like
Yeah.
so many.
yeah, and I would never have even thought about that. So
Mhm,
now
Well,
that you,
see, and that's the things we ask people
yeah,
to look around your house with the witch's eyes.
mm,
Like we
mm,
and the truth is, because again, it's a great big world and there's a lot of input all the time. We become blind to what is around us, or we have already categorized it
mhm,
as, okay, that's the junk drawer. Oh yeah, I'm going to throw that in the back of the closet because I can't deal with that right now. But those are treasure troves when you go back through and look with a witch's eyes and see what is back there and think about how you might be able to use that. I mean, if you have like let's say you have a board game and you've lost most of the pieces of the board game, you can recover that folding board, and now you've got a tarot, a place to do your tarot readings on,
mm-hmm.
or maybe you have a mini portable altar, or maybe you have, it could be anything. And we don't look at that. We look at the game that's missing pieces and say, well, it's trash. I don't know what to do with it. I guess I'll throw it out.
yeah.
Well, and stuff like that is other people would not think about that, but those of us who are basically pagans and witches, it's stuff like that that yeah, people will repurpose for other means. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
there is nothing wrong with doing that.
Well, and then and again, I want to flip that on its head. I think the extended title of the book is Thrifty Witchery, Magic for the Penny Pinching Practitioner, which I do love all
Yeah.
those P's. But this is a book about abundance. This is
Mm,
not a book about being a have-not. This
Mm.
is a book about opening your eyes to all that you have. I mean, you have stuff. It's not that you don't have stuff. It's that we need to reinterpret, we need to reframe the uses of the things that we have.
mhm.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that we live in this capitalistic environment where we are susceptible to the idea that you have to have, a house that you own, or you have to have, this
Mhm.
$52,000 a year job or whatever. But really, like, have you guys ever watched any of those survivalist shows where people go out into the wilderness and they have like 5 items and then they like get documented surviving for like 56 days, and these
Yep.
people thrive. Their
They always
bodies
look so
become
sweaty.
more
I don't do that.
fit, and
Yeah.
they like literally, I watched this one and I watched this man become younger over 10 episodes because he
Interesting.
was living off the land and he was like drinking water all the time and he had
Fully
no
activated.
stresses other than
Mhm.
the fact that like it was just survival mode. And there's this idea of survival mode where it's almost cleansing. Like coming from a background where I lived on the streets for nearly a decade, I have to say that it was the best time of my life. You know, all I had to worry about was what am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? That's it. I wasn't like, how am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to get gas for my car? How am I going to do this? Like, my biggest concerns were where do I get cigarettes? Where do I get food? Where do I sleep tonight? And once I had those three things figured out each day, I was done. And it was solid. Like I didn't have the other stresses. And sure, yeah, being homeless is super stressful. But at the end of the day, it's hardly as stressful as going to work every day. I mean,
Mhm. Yep, I can understand that one. Um, and really, there's a lot of us out here, especially, yeah, those who are working with budgets, or even if they don't have a budget, they will get stuff from thrift stores
mhm.
using their magical practices to repurpose items,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
which I also approve of. I've done it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, even if you have the money to spend, it's like, how are you? Like, I save up for like. It's not like I don't buy stuff. I buy stuff, um, but I'm not always buying it. I save up my money because I'm being frugal in other places. You know, like when there's a part of the book where we talk about and I think Benny really dove into this part where you go to the grocery store and you don't you look at what you're already buying and see how you can use that in don't like in your magical practice. So like don't set aside certain money from your grocery budget to buy the special herbs or something. You know,
mhm.
salt is always a great thing. Water, you can do that. Fruits, there are fruits that are wonderful offerings, all kinds of deities if you work with the deity. And if you're already buying, I don't know, a bag of apples or something, you can always take one aside and use that for your magical practice. And now you haven't overspent on your budget or added something more to your budget. You're working within
Hmm.
your determined budget, but just looking at it a little bit differently with an eye to how can I use this in my magical practice.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I noticed that Jason Mankey had wrote your forward for the book, and it's coincidence that I had just spoken with him last week, and unfortunately, we had to cut our interview short because
Oh yeah, I saw that because of a lightning or some kind of
yeah,
thunderstorm
storms
coming through.
rolling in. So uh, I've already scheduled a part two with him for next Tuesday. He'll be coming back for part two. Um,
Yes, we giggled like children when he said yes. We were just like, would you consider writing the forward for this book?" He said, "What do you mean would I consider? I would love to write the forward of your book." And we're like, "Really? Great, here it is." And here's where we'd like to have it by. That's always fun too.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of Jason. I think that Jason is the reason that Martha and I know each other
Hmm.
in a big way. And I think that we both have our own like personal interactions with Jason. I would call Jason a friend. I would
I
not call
think he is
Jason an
too.
acquaintance. I would
Yeah.
I would definitely term him as a friend for me.
Hmm.
And I can't imagine Martha would call him anything else.
Oh yeah.
Um, but like he's definitely the connective glue that put Martha and I together
Hmm.
in a big way. And so it just made sense that for Martha's first book and our first endeavor together, that he would write the forward because he knows us both, and
Hmm.
he knows us from before. Like I think that like he knew who I was before my book actually came out, but then like he was very supportive on my first book and like literally put Martha in place with the Agora. Like I mean,
Hmm. That's
I
exactly
don't know
right.
that story. That's not my story to tell. But like, I mean, that's how I met Martha was through the Agora, and it's because
Hmm.
Jason handed that off to her, and so it just made really good sense.
Yeah, we have for people. We've never actually been in the same room together, so that's why we're looking forward to Mystic South because we can actually like share space with each other.
Yeah.
But we've known each other and we've worked with each other in one form or fashion for I think it's been almost 4 years now. I mean, I think it's. I can't. I'd have to go back and look and see. Well, I've got your book right here. I could.
Mhm.
That up. Let's see.
Now, Martha, you are also a content provider at KPPR Pure Pagan Radio.
Yes, and
And
I need to give them more information. Yeah, I haven't because they will rerun their stuff like on a schedule. So it's been I need to send them some more recordings. I do a lot of meditations. And so if you listen to KPPR, every once in a while you'll hear one of my meditations come up.
nice. Now I've got your information scrolling at the bottom, and
Oh, look at that.
then Vincent. Now you are a writer, you're a author, and also a builder of things.
Yeah. I like power tools.
He
That's
does.
I actually work in the power tool industry for one of the largest power tool companies in America, and I really enjoy it. But I got a degree in industrial design, and I've just always loved to build things. So like you can find me on a weekend randomly making up projects and whatnot, and I really just love to create is what it is. And I went to art school, and from that I became a painter and a builder of things. But beyond that, it's just my whole goal is that I'm a creator. I was born to create, so that's why I write and why I paint and why I build things and make content on my Instagram and TikTok and different things like that.
We should say a little bit about your first book too, Vinny, because I mean that's an amazing book. It's How Witchcraft Saved My Life.
Yeah,
And
I've seen
I
that.
mean, it's an astonishing book, and he has an astonishing life story.
Ah,
I mean, it's amazing.
Well, I actually do. I've also been doing customer service work for Granger Industrial.
okay.
So we carry a lot of the major brands. So I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I mean, who doesn't love a good power tool? Come on.
There are people, I will tell you this much, there are people in the world who are not into the power tools, and they're all the customers that I deal with every day. So,
Okay, well, all right. There are those out there, like, but who doesn't love a good power tool? I mean, these days, come on. I mean, they come in handy.
yeah,
They're noisy.
Okay, I'll
sometimes.
give that one to you. I'll give that to you.
I don't use power tools, mostly because I can be a little clumsy, and like I've caught my hair on fire. I've caught my hair in fans, and so I'm just a little leery of things that I'm going to rip my hair out of my head with, because I would be the one to do it.
Martha, that's what hair ties are for.
That's what they say.
Exactly.
That's what they say. But we're excited about the book. It comes out April 2023, so we've got a ways to go yet. We just got our cover, which I saw you had shown online just
Yep.
Several minutes ago. So we're super excited about that. I love the color of it. I love, the art department was very responsive to us and said with their first rendition of the cover and said, "Do you have anything to say?" And we both had. We both wanted to have the coins look a little different, and gosh, they just came right back with a different look, and it's gorgeous. I mean, I think it's gorgeous, so I'm excited about it.
Cool.
We'll see what
Something
happens.
else that is a good skill to have, and especially when you've got, well, speaking of um, basically your magic pouches and whatnot, and basically, even when you've got old material laying around that, say for instance, you got yeah, socks that you can't use anymore, or even uh, old sweatpants that you cut up,
Mhm.
you can easily transform those. And granted, takes a little bit of sewing, but you can make your own magical pouches.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Make
Mhm.
pretty much anything that you need from old pieces of clothing, and that you can incorporate into your magical practices.
Well,
One
and
thing that you go.
okay, I was gonna say one like we talk about that in the book that it doesn't even need to just be clothing. Like you can use your curtains, your sheets. There's all kinds of things. Like, and it doesn't even need to be cloth. It can be anything. I have several pieces of furniture that have been repurposed to have magical purpose, and some of it is just a place to like burn something, and some of it is a full-on altar that I found basically in the trash and then painted and fixed up and now use it as my space.
Mhm.
And that's really what the whole book is about. I mean, I think that we talk very little, not much at all, about the few things that you might have to spend some money on, like discount herbs at the grocery store that are
Mhm.
past their date, which was definitely something that Martha super contributed because I had no idea. I'm not
Oh,
really a
yeah.
grocery store
Listen,
person.
because when bay leaves go like bay leaves have a certain amount of time that they can be useful for cooking, but it's
Mm,
also one of these ubiquitous, pieces of magic that you find ingredients for magic that you find in almost gosh, in a ton of spells.
mhm.
And they will run those on sale, like a big jug of the things for dirt cheap, and they'll
Yep.
last forever. They'll last, and you can do anything. You can write intentions on a bay leaf. You
Yep.
can
Hmm.
you can burn the bay leaf. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you can do with it.
Right.
And
Right.
one of the things I wanted to touch on too is that a key component or message in the book is that you will never really, a person will never really come into their full magical prowess, their full magical power, until they leave that mindset of what magic should be and come into a magical mindset of what magic
Could
could
be.
be.
Mhm.
And that's a I can see where that happens because we all learn from other people. We all have mentors. We grow up learning with grown-ups telling us, what to do, and they're supposed to, I mean, that's natural. But I think it's hard for us as we come into young adulthood, to break that pattern of having to be vetted or told you're okay by somebody else because we're in a society that disempowers us,
Mhm.
that really disempowers us. That we're taught not to trust our instinct, and we're taught that we need to check in with somebody outside of us to make sure that what we're doing is okay. And that's a hard habit since we've been ingrained in that since childhood to break as an adult, to where we can really say, okay, I'm my own best authority, and you're going to do your research, and you're going to do your study, and you're going to read how other people do it, and find your authors that really resonate with you, and yada yada yada. But at some point, you've got to be able to flip the switch to say, I have enough confidence in my ability, I have enough confidence in my magic that I don't really need to check in with anybody else to see
Mm-mm.
if I'm doing it okay.
Right.
Right.
And I
It
think
goes,
it's
Right.
hard to get to that place.
it goes back to rule number one: know thyself.
Yeah.
We talk about
And
that.
if you question that,
Do.
if you go on to rule number two, refer back to rule number one.
But it means
We
knowing
do.
all of you. We do talk about it. I mean, it's actually what I think that's like a subhead. Know thyself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely that. And I think one of the other, really big catch-alls that are pretty common in magic that we talk about is also the whole like idea of abracadabra. Like I speak and damn it, of course, this always happens when I do this stuff.
Like
Like I
I
have the
speak,
words.
and then it happens, or something like that. I speak until
Yeah.
it's true, or something like that.
Right, right. Because of course I can't say it right now because I'm on a recording and my brain's not going to work that way. But
Whoops, I think we lost him.
Oh, he locked up
Stuff
on.
because it's all
Oh, here
valid.
he is.
It's like this
Mhm.
kind of stuff that's always been around.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those are all parts of the like self-empowerment, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
before you can really go out into the world and seek wisdom and use your intuition and intuition, wisdom, and intention. So and use your intention to get what you want. You really have to know that you can do it. You really have to know that you're powerful, that you're able to obtain wisdom in anything. It doesn't really matter where it is. And like sources are important, but at the same time, what you glean from something is what you glean from it, whether it is this like super factual thing or not. What you've taken from something, you can watch a TV show and get something from it, and it's not even meant for that, you know. And so you really kind of have to find that self-empowerment first, and then once you have that and you're able to use your intuition and gain wisdom and use your intentions to get what you want, it's only then that you're able to go forward and forage and fabricate and find the things that you use for your practice. And that's really what the book is about. It really is this whole idea that you only need yourself and the things that are in your environment.
Right.
Because outside of that, what's the significance? You know?
Mm-hmm.
You
Exactly.
know, one of the things that and Vinny, I want to ask you too, but like one of the things that this book, writing this book changed me. And I think anybody who writes will tell you that writing a book changes you, because you're really having to know thyself as you're writing it. You know, is this really, why do I think this? I think this. Why do I think that? And does that still make sense? Like, what is, you know, is it just like a flight of fancy or whatever? One of the things that when I was writing about intention, and Vinny and I wrote like side by side practically. I mean, we have like words and sentences are like all jumbled up. And we can tell who wrote what, but nobody else can really tell who wrote what. But one of the things that came clear to me about intention was that it was both a metaphysical component and a physical manifestation at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That an intention grows like inside of you. It doesn't exist, right? Until you're being able to define it and refine it, coalesce it, and then you send it out. And now it's going to exist. And that was not something I had ever really broken down about.
Mm-hmm.
What is intention? Is it an intangible, or is it a tangible? And then in writing this, I realized it's both. You know, it's a floor wax and a dessert topping. It's intangible, but then it becomes tangible, and so it has. There's some movement and some friction in that I think is part of what helps spark it into being when it manifests. And
Right.
I was wondering, Minnie, if there was like any part of the book when you were writing it, you thought, oh, now I've learned something about what I think, you know, about that.
Tell you
I
what,
mean,
we're gonna take a quick commercial break, and we're gonna be right back with more. We're gonna get more into this, so don't go nowhere. We're gonna be right back right after these words.
I just walked into this coffee shop. You'll never guess what I found. All the help is deeply engrossed in metaphysical times. You should too. I'm at the Egyptian, 475 Park Avenue in Idaho Falls, Idaho. You get your very own copy for free, and we're open till 10.
Sister Moon Apothecary and More is a collaboration of local island witches bringing you handcrafted tools for ritual, amazing apothecary, custom vinyl work, merchandise, and so much more. But we are not just an online store. We are a sisterhood, a platform, and a voice for everything that is magical. Join us for our famous Tarot Tuesdays from 11 to 4 Eastern Standard Time for a discounted reading with our amazing in-house intuitive reader and priestess, Wolf Spirit Energy, Beverly Oberlin. You can find us on Facebook at Sister Moon Store or on the web at sistermoon.shop. So fly on over and stop in for a spell.
Pagan Artist Spotlight on the Prairie Land Radio Network and the Podbean Podcast Network.
We are back with Martha Kirby and also Vincent Higginbotham. and we've been talking about their book and all the practical applications for being a thrifty witch, and utilizing what you have already to incorporate into your magical practices. And um, yeah, we're going to get back to that question that Martha had asked here just right before we went to commercial break. Go ahead there, Vinny.
Take it away,
Um,
Vinny.
I have to think of the question now.
Well, like, what did you find out about, like, what did you discover about yourself as you were writing this book that you had not either didn't know already, had not known before, or had not articulated before that you like, oh, okay, that really is what I think.
So I think that the thing that really shined through, or shone through rather, for me was that throughout the process of writing the book, it was a selfless act. Because it wasn't just about me, it was about us and the message that we delivered, really. And throughout all of that, it taught me more about who I am and a sense of my own empowerment, because you know coming from the background that I come from, it's always been very self-serving isn't the right word, but it's an appropriate term to use, because it was all about survival and getting
Sure.
through life.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I grew into adulthood, I became a father and a husband and all these things. And so that selfless act of being a human for other people is there. But it wasn't until the creative act of being human for somebody else and not serving only myself that I realized that there is a sense of empowerment to even that selfless acts hold that that sense of empowerment, because I think that what I learned was that it doesn't have to be about just me in my creative endeavors either. And that really pertains to magic for me, because at the end of the day, the reason that this book exists for me, the reason that I was so gung-ho about it, is because it really is how I practice magic. This is
It really is, yeah.
genuinely what I'm doing all the time. I mean, I love going to witch shops and I love to buy tarot decks and I love to buy, crystals to wear or different things like that. But when it really comes down to it, I'm out in the woods and I'm like, oh, hey, here's a stick. I like this stick. This stick is my stick now. And this stick has the power. Or I'm like, hey, let me use this shirt for an altar cloth. Or, here's this stuff that's in the cabinet and it's no good anymore. So let me use it as an offering and different things like this. And so it is very much about my practice. And then when it comes to creating something, anything, it really is about yourself, right? And so when you're doing it with somebody else, you're suddenly not just about yourself, but about the unit. And being able to take creativity and the act of creation and mix it with my magic, which is what my magic is about, and then doing that with somebody else, because I'm a solitary practitioner. I do not practice magic with other people. I have zero interest in it, and I really shy away from it. When other people want to practice magic around me, I'm very uncomfortable, because it's just not my vibe. I don't want to match that vibe because I have my own. But when it came to creating, which is a magical practice to me, it was very easy because I trust Martha. And that sense of trust was this empowering thing, because I trusted her so much that I could put all my other stuff aside and be like, okay, cool. Yeah. Let's listen to what Martha has to say too, because it's not just about me. So I think what I learned, this is a really long way to answer that, but what I learned was that, I can practice with other people and that it's not really all solitary, and that there is magic in the act of creating, even down to writing a book, not just my magical practice.
Right.
Well,
Does
I've
that
had
make
people ask,
sense?
it does. I've had people ask, were you guys, did you ever duke it out or anything like that? Because we're very different people. And, I will say that we both approached this book with perfect love and perfect trust for each other. And so when we had points of disagreement, which we did,
Mhm.
it was never personal, because it wasn't about Vinny and it's not about
Mm-mm.
Martha. It's about the book.
Right.
What works for the book. And so we were able to really, I feel like this book was written with perfect love and perfect trust, so that we were able to express places where we're like, I'm not understanding this, or I don't agree with this. We were able to resolve those uh, uh, places where we were not in congruence in ways that honored both of our personal truths, but were still made sense on the page.
Yeah, I'm always reminded anytime you mention that, I'm always reminded of that one conversation that we had. It was so long, and I was just standing outside on my porch and we were talking, and I was saying one thing and you were saying the other. And I feel like it was when we started talking about IWI, like the
I think that's
intention,
right. Yeah,
wisdom,
that's what
and
everything came about. Yeah.
intuition, and how they were three different things, but that it took all three to kind of like stack on top of each other, and that's
Mhm.
what fed into the whole three F's of
Mhm.
fabrication, finding, and foraging.
Mhm.
And I was saying this, I can't even remember what I was saying, and then you were saying something different, and both of us were listening to the other person, but it took like an hour before we were like, wait a minute,
I think we're
we're
saying the same
literally saying the same thing, and we're not hearing it because we have to stop and say,
thing.
wait, what is Vinny saying? Wait, what is Martha saying?
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
like I think that once we were like, because it was never like a fight. It was never ever
Never,
like a
ever.
I don't agree with you. It was very help me understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
And it was a lot of Martha, I hear you saying this. This is what I'm hearing you say. Is that correct? And then Martha would be like, well, no, I'm saying
Mhm.
this. And then like when we really dug in, we were able to find our groove. And like that's what
Mhm.
made this work. Because there are several moments where we were writing this, and I would say to Martha, I can't tell who wrote this.
Mhm.
Like,
Really
and
can't tell.
Martha would say the same thing. Like, there are definitely moments in the book, as Jason points out in his foreword, that you can tell that maybe I worked on this practice or Martha worked on that spell. But I think that in the meat of the book, it's one voice, and that's not something that happens easily between people.
No.
It's not something that I think that just any set of people can sit down and do unless you're like a ghostwriter who's used to writing for somebody else's voice, you know? And so when you look at the book and you read it and you're like, wow, I can't tell if Martha said this or if I said this or what I changed or what she changed. That really shows you that yes, this book is written by two people, but really we became this one person. We became this spirit unit that,
Mhm.
I mean, it's like the Martha Vinny vortex or
I think you're
whatever.
right. I know that when we're looking at, because you have to go back through and you're looking at what each other is writing, and I remember looking at something and making a comment on the document. Boy, I just love this phrase, and then he's like, Martha, you wrote that. I was like, I did. I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, we must have read through that book like 50
Oh, I
times.
just
I
don't
think
even
there
want
was
to
a point where we both were like, let's not look at it for a minute because we had to.
know.
And
Hmm.
then when we came back with fresh eyes, it was like, wow, this is really great. And I'm like, yeah, Martha, that's because you wrote it. It is really great. I agree with you, but those are your
That was
words.
so
So I'm not
funny. I mean,
surprised you like that.
that was so funny because I had no. I was like, man, he's really hot. You know, he's got it going on. He's like, you wrote that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that happen too, where somebody will remind me of something that I may have wrote a long time ago, and it's like, okay, that sounds real good. Well, they said, yeah, sure, you wrote it. It's like, huh? Like, okay, all right.
Yeah. Well, that's what writing is, right? I mean, writing is the ideation. It's not really the words that you bleed out
Hmm.
into the format, right? It's really the ideation. And so I think that when you're writing with another person, it's easy to be like, wait, I wrote that? Because I mean, even when I wrote my first book, I'm still shocked sometimes when I look over and I'm like, whoa, I said that? Because it sometimes isn't you or it isn't me. It's literally the spirit channeled
Hmm.
through us.
Hmm.
And I think that Martha and I tapped into the same damn spirit, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just very clear. And it was really nice because we took turns. Like I would do the first half and she would do the second half. And then I'd be like, okay, now it's your turn. You do the first half and I'm going to do the second half. And then you come back and you're like, wow, that went really well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, there was a lot of selflessness in it. And it was very nice. It was very relieving because you enter into the witch world and you find a lot of hurt people who are healing. And I'm sure that both Martha and I are, well, I can't really speak for Martha, but I can definitely speak for myself when I say that I am a hurt person who is healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this assumption that all witches are in some way healing, and that that's kind of part of the point. And that, you know, your ego gets in the way sometimes, and you see that a lot in the witch world, and it just was not the case
Mm-hmm.
in this at all. There was never an ego.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this big relief to have that kind of connection with another person.
Yeah, I would agree because we we know people who have co-authored books before, but their method is so different from ours because they will each have an assigned section, and then author A writes this section, author B doesn't really say much about it, might read it over, but has really not that much to say about it, and vice versa. And it really is sometimes 3 sentences Vinny, 1 sentence Martha, 4 sentences Vinny, 6 sentences Martha, all in one, and then several.
Sometimes it was just words.
Sometimes
Sometimes
just
it was
words.
like 1 sentence with 3 words me, 2 words Martha, 5 words me, 2 words, like, like we really flowed. I was talking to Jason Menke in Salem last fall when I happened to be there at the same time, and he was working on his forthcoming book with Estrella Taylor, or had just finished it. And I was like, how did you guys do it? Like, what was the process? And he told me, I think that they took turns per chapter. And I was like, wow, like that's crazy. That is not how we're doing it. And I was definitely in a moment where I was like, I don't know how I'm pulling this off, because you have that as a writer. Like, I think as a creator in general, you often experience things like, help me, Martha, imposter syndrome. I got it.
That's right. That's right.
You often experience imposter syndrome. I think that we both experienced that. And I think that there were definitely times where I can't speak for Martha because I'm not in Martha's head, but there were definitely times for me where I was like, can we do this? Can we pull this off? And then we would. And I was like, oh yeah, no, we can't. Like, it was that imposter syndrome telling me like, maybe you can't do this. But it really like worked out that way. And I couldn't imagine taking turns the way that Jason has talked about. And I'm sure that that works really well. Like, I'm currently reading that book to provide a blurb, and it's really good. But like, I can't imagine that process because like, I don't think that that's how I work. I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe there's a time in the future that I'll find out. But for me, like, this book wouldn't have worked that way.
No, I don't think so.
Well, like you said, I had originally come across Martha when she was doing her thing at Llewellyn Con, and not had a chance to check them out. There's only like one more day left.
Yep.
But they have done. Llewellyn did a fantastic job with putting on the Llewellyn Con for this year, having 10 authors in.
It's 40 authors, 10 days.
Yeah, 40 authors in 10 days. There we go. They did a fantastic job with this, and
I think it's their 3rd year to do it this way. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because you did it for How Witchcraft Saved My Life a couple of years ago, or was that last year?
I did. I think it was last year because my son had graduated. My oldest son had just graduated. We were actually at his birthday party, and I want to say that was last year.
That's right.
Yeah, it was last year. And that was, it was very interesting. My video was tore up because I had a horrible signal, but yeah, they do a really good job. Llewellyn's really good to their writers.
Yep, they are, and I'm glad that I've developed the contact that I have with Marcus at the office. He's been really good to work with. He he's been sending me regular shipments, boxes of books. It's
Hey,
like,
cool. I want that gig.
good grief. It's like he even wound up sending me a brand new tarot deck that I wasn't
Yep.
Nice.
expecting, and it's like, dude, like I'll
Well,
keep
they like to have reviewers, you know. I mean, they
They do.
like, you know, they really need reviewers, and so,
right.
you know,
And that's basically what I have been doing. And that's the reason why I've been taking the time out these last couple of weeks to do this for everybody at Llewellyn.
yeah, that's a they they've been lovely. They've been lovely because I don't. I'm getting out more now, but I'm a real introvert. I like being at home,
Hmm.
and I can do group work. I can be with people, but then I have to go and sit in a dark room in the quiet with my dog for a little while, and then I can go and do other things. Like things like this, where you know it's not going to take very long, and I'm engaged, and Vinny's right there, and we're like riding lobsters. He's my lobster, and so this is fine. But I feel like when I go to Mystic South, I feel like I'm going to be meeting all these people that I've had vigorous online relationships with. Gosh, that sounds terrible. That I've had close online relationships with, um, but I've never really met them in person. But now I'm going to meet all these people in person, and it's just I'm excited and dazzled and slightly afraid.
Well, I can understand that. And we were also talking about the folks down at PSG earlier when before we had gone live. We were talking about how they're in their new location down in southern Missouri.
Hmm.
I looked them up. I looked it up where they're at, and it's like I know where they're at.
Hmm.
Uh, and we were talking about because basically with the heat the way it is.
Yeah, I'm concerned, because it's stinking hot there. It's stinking hot, and it's so easy. It's going to be the first time that they've met in like 2 years, I guess. 2 years.
Right.
And so I feel like, not only is it going to be stinking hot, but we're going to have a lot of brothers and sisters and people there who maybe haven't um, been in a camping experience for a week in a heat wave for 2 years. And so I'm very hopeful. Of course, the Guardians are amazing, and the medical staff is amazing, and they really do a good job of kind of keeping an eye on people and seeing who might be overextending themselves. But I still think it's going to be a challenge, and I hope all wonderful and good things happen for these
Yeah.
people who
So
are
do I.
gathering.
So do I. 'Cause I still remember back to the year they get flooded out, and when I first heard about it, and everybody trying to scramble to
Hmm.
get out, and I'm like, oh man, it's like
I know.
the that's when the first responder in me kicked in,
Hmm.
and say like I I was half tempted to jump in the car and go.
Sure.
Uh, so that that part of me is always going to be a
Well,
factor.
I mean, I can't say enough good things about the Guardians. I really cannot, and because you have to volunteer when you go, and so I volunteered in the medical tent, not because I have any particular medical knowledge, but a lot of it you just need like a receptionist type person to say name, what's your problem? Here, I'll put a band-aid on you, whatever it is, before like the trained staff gets to see them.
Right.
And watching this trained staff work was just because they're in their paying lives, in their paying jobs. A lot of them are EMTs, excuse me,
Mhm.
or in law enforcement, or um, perhaps they've served in the armed forces. I mean, these people know their stuff,
Oh yeah.
uh, and I
Sure.
think they're a remarkable group of people.
Well, okay. Now I've had your information scrolling down at the bottom for both of you, and so Martha, they can find you on your Facebook page.
Yep, I'm on. I actually have two Facebook pages. I have my personal one, which is Martha Kirby Capo, CAPO. But I also have my Corner Crone, the Corner Crone on Facebook. I will say I'm a lot more active on my regular one, and then I'm on Instagram. It's the Corner Crone at Instagram. I was on Twitter, but I elected to no longer be on Twitter with the possible coming changes in management. So I'm not as connected as Vinny is. Vinny's like, man, he's everywhere. But I'm really just Instagram and Facebook because I'm old, Earl. And
I'm right there with you there, dear.
Yeah. I'm not that much farther behind y'all, honestly. I mean, I'm an elder millennial or a
Mhm,
young Gen Xer. I'm somewhere in the
mhm.
middle there. And I am on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. I'm not really active on Facebook. I use Facebook to like pay attention to my family.
You're on
But
LinkedIn.
mostly I am on LinkedIn, but I don't really use that much either. I really focus in on Instagram and TikTok at this point because I really like to make reels and I really like to make videos that inspire people or talk about my life because at the end of the day, my brand is me, right?
Right.
And so my brand isn't that I'm a witch, but that I am like a long-term HIV/AIDS survivor and a person who was homeless and is no longer, and a person who is getting through the world just like everybody else.
You really
So
should read his first book. It's astonishing. You should read it.
I do have a first book. It's How Witchcraft Saved My Life, Practical Advice for Transformative Magic. You can get that anywhere that books are sold. I suggest your witchy shops asking them to carry it. If they don't, or just ordering it for you, you can order it directly from Llewellyn. You can get it on Amazon, I guess, if you want to give Bezos money, but like whatever.
You can translate it
And
into Russian,
it
which I think
has
is
been
just amazing.
translated into Russian. Actually, the cover for that is like really cool looking.
Oh, is it?
And when I saw it the first time, I was like, oh wow, I like
Really?
that. Yeah, like I was really impressed with it. But it has been translated into Russian and whatnot. But basically, like if you want to keep up with me, you can check me out on Instagram. It's Vinny VINI Higginbotham, which is my last name HIGGINBOTHAM. It's a mouthful. And you can also find me searching that on TikTok or Twitter. I don't tweet a lot. I basically stalk on Twitter more than anything and randomly in like, interact with people, but mostly it's like TikTok and Instagram for me more than anything. And I pay attention to Facebook some, but I really don't add people unless I genuinely like know them or are
Mhm,
related to them.
mhm.
So it's best to find me on either of those two platforms, TikTok and Twitter, or TikTok and Instagram rather.
Very good. Well, definitely go and search out his book, How Witchcraft Saved My Life.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is. The cover is definitely a good cover. So basically, go and check that out. You can find that pretty much. All you got to do is just Google it. It'll take you right to it.
Mhm.
Um, so it's it'd be another good book to add to any library. So we have been
I
having
have
a
the money.
cool.
Thanks.
All right, so be sure to check that out, and then come next year, be sure to check out Thrifty Witchery, which will be coming out in April of 2023.
Mhm.
Be sure to get that, and we'll definitely be staying in touch with the both of you. Looking forward to any other updates that you've got for
Sure.
us, and we'll definitely look forward to getting the book as well. So you have
Well,
been
Earl, it's been a
listening.
pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out and having us.
You are
Yeah, thank you a lot. It was really nice talking with you today.
good deal. I'm glad to hear that. Been listening to another edition of Iowa Pagan News and Pagan Artist Spotlight on the Prairie Land Radio Network. Appreciate everyone who tunes in on a regular basis. This video will be available later on YouTube, and then the audio portion will be on Podbean. So be sure to check that out. As always, if you have questions for me directly, you can contact me at Earl at iapnradio.net or else iowapagannews at gmail. And as always, have a great week. Have a good weekend coming up. And if you're going to be out in the heat, just be mindful and just kind of watch
Hydrate.
out.
Hydrate. Yep.
Definitely. And I'm hoping that the people at PSG will be listening to this as well.
We love you. Hydrate.
Yes, be sure to watch out for each other down there. And we'll be seeing you again tomorrow as we've got another good interview coming up. So we'll see you then. Have a good night. We are out of here for the night.
Thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast. All shows are recorded and available for download at plrdn.podbean.com. All rights are reserved and may not be replayed without written permission by IAPN Radio Management. Come join us at our new group, IAPN Radio on Facebook, where you can be kept up to date for future broadcasts. Pleasant journeys, everyone.